All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be looking at the 2021 SEC Championship game. Georgia and Alabama, probably the matchup of the year. Two top four teams. Georgia is presumably in, regardless of the outcome in this one. Alabama, they're likely out of the playoff race with a loss here. 6-point spread is currently the line. It's going to move around a lot during the week. Over-under is 50.5. 4 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. This one will be contested in Atlanta, and all-time in the series history. Bama leads 41-25, also 4 ties. Looking at the Georgia offense, Stetson Bennett, he's been an above-average game manager. That's the way I like to put it. This season, we're finally be able to answer the question if he can deliver here for all the marbles in the SEC championship game. Last year when they played Bama, he struggled for the most part. He's probably the biggest reason they lost. He was 18 of 40 passing, 2 or 3 interceptions. He turned it over a good amount of times. That was on the big stage. He struggled against Florida as well in the 2 biggest games of the year. They lost both of those games, and Bennett was not very good in either of them. I like to say he's much better compared to last year, but still, he's been kind of up and down this year. That's why I put it as an above-average game manager. I really don't know if he can put the offense on his shoulders and carry him to the promised land. Running the ball, though, for Georgia has not been an issue this year. They have a deep rotation of backs. James Cook, Zamir White. They're good to go. Kendall Milton, he might not play. So depth takes a small hit. Not a big deal, just something to monitor. The offensive line, they've been really great in pass protection this year. And, of course, getting a giant push up front. Jamari Slayer, he's questionable. I'm sure. I assume he'll be questionable. I can't recall if he played against Georgia Tech or not. I know he's been battling an injury. But we're going to anticipate him playing. Him and Justin Schaefer on the left side. Big bodies. Those guys are tough. They're probably the best part of this offensive line, even though collectively it's a great group. I think they need to find ways to get James Cook matched up on linebackers. You've seen last year in this game between the two, he had a long, 70-yard touchdown, one-on-one coverage, and he burned whoever matched up with him. That's what he does. So you want to get him in open space as much as you can. George Pickens is back. I think he's going to be limited, though. He had one grab against Georgia Tech. He just got cleared. I don't expect him to have a big role. Something to monitor, though, throughout the week, see what they say, see what he does in practice. He could play a big role, but I don't expect him to. Ladd McConkey, he's got some good speed. Jermaine Burton, plenty of other guys that are capable. This receiving core, though, it's not great, I would say, for what they have. I think these guys are, again, capable. They spread it around a good bit. Brock Bowers at tight end. This guy's been phenomenal this year. Great vertically. He's a speedster. For his size, the way he moves, this guy is just... It's a privilege to watch him play football. He's a great player for being a freshman. He's going to be a first-round pick in a couple of years, probably an All-American as well. He's a phenomenal player. The downfield passing game, though, it's been solid at times. They had some big hitters against Auburn. Against Clemson, they weren't very good all the way back in week 1 with a different quarterback, of course. But they've occasionally hit some big plays. Downfield passing, though, intermediate range against a defense like Alabama's. How will they play? It's kind of iffy. I think this is the game you're probably going to see Stetson Bennett get benched, especially if Georgia gets down in this game. You're likely going to see JT Daniels make an appearance because we know how much talent he has. He's not played a lot, though, with this offense. Stetson, because JT was battling injuries, Stetson got the nod, and they kind of rolled with him. And it's been that way. He's not played his way out of the job. He's done exactly what they've asked out of him. That's why I put it as an above-average game manager. All around, this is a really good Georgia offense, but it starts at the line of scrimmage with that offensive line. They're going to want to run the ball. That's where they're going to make their money. Looking at the Alabama offense, Bryce Young really carried them against Auburn. Their interior offensive line struggled immensely. They struggled at right tackle as well. They couldn't run it against Auburn. They couldn't really pass protect well late on in that game. They found ways to protect. They still have Evan Neal at left tackle. He's probably the nation's best in his position. I think they're going to shore up that offensive line struggles, though. Bill O'Brien's going to find a way to get Bryce Young off the center of the pocket where, you think that matchup they have is going to lead to a lot of demons for the Alabama offense because they didn't look great against Auburn. Now they're facing probably the best defensive line that's came through college football in a long time. So Bill O'Brien, they're going to have to find a way to neutralize it. I think they will. Can they hold up consistently? That remains to be seen. Bryce Young, he's been a big playmaker for them this year. Averaging over 300 passing yards per game, 40-plus touchdowns, only a couple of picks. very solid running game for the Tide as well, 150 yards per game. They got a hard runner in Brian Robinson. He's been kind of banged up, though. We'll monitor his status throughout the week. Big loss if he's unable to play. Trey Sanders is a former 5-star. He's more than capable of getting good touches, but this is a running back room that had a lot of great depth coming into the year. It's kind of taken a hit because Jace McClellan, I don't think he's going to play the rest of the year. I know he's injured. So if Robinson can't, then, that's going to be a big concern for Bama. I think they'll find a way to get their running yards, but they haven't been as dominant in the trenches as expected this year. So Robinson, I think he must play in this game for Bama to have a shot to be successful. Look at the receiving core. Jameson Williams, he's been phenomenal. You put him outside, in the slot. Him and John Mechie on the outside. These guys are burners. They're going to have one-on-one opportunities. Maybe not often, but I think they will at least have a handful where they can take advantage of the coverage on the outside. I think they need to get Jaleel Billingsley involved, his size and skills. They could be very useful in this contest. Overall, this passing game, though, when their offensive line is clicking and they're consistent and they're in rhythm, it's very tough to slow them down. They can move in a hurry. So Alabama, the biggest concern for them is their offensive line. But in turn, you've seen Ja'Cory Brooks step up a receiver against Auburn with a big touchdown grab. They have great talent. I think they're going to be okay at running back. I expect Robinson to play. So two very good offensive units for both teams as we head into Atlanta. Georgia defense, their defensive line we were just talking about. These guys are elite. They have great size, too, on the interior. Devontae Wyatt, he's 360 pounds. Jordan Davis is a complete game wrecker. Jalen Carter also gets involved a good bit. There's a reason why this is the third straight year in a row they're going to be one of the nation's top 3 teams against the run. Nakobe Dean's a big asset. He can do a lot, mainly as a run stopper, but he can blitz from the interior. He can drop back in coverage and make plays as an athletic specimen. He's probably going to win the nation. He's going to probably win the award for the nation's best linebacker. He does it all. He's allowed Georgia as a whole. They've only allowed 3 runs of 20-plus yards all year. That is unheard of. That is elite stuff from them. Pass rush, though, they've been fine without Adam Anderson. Against Tennessee, they had 6 sacks. Chance Tyndall, he really stepped up. He had 3 of them. I think Travon Walker and Robert Beal are really going to have to step up, though, because his services, you're going to feel them in this game. If they can't get to the pass rush, if they can't generate a pass rush, Anderson being out, it's probably going to be a big reason why. We're not sure. I don't expect him to return to the football team this year. But all around, they have plenty of talent all around. Inexperience, though, of course, is going to be an issue for some of these guys. But I trust Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning to figure it out, regardless of who's on the field. Secondary, though, it's been a big question mark for me. Yeah, they've played great for the most part. And on the stat sheet, they've been fine. But the defensive line's been a wrecking crew. They've dominated so much. You've not had a chance to see how they can fare against tempo, against a good offensive line. Alabama can provide the tempo. They're capable of playing good up front. So we'll see what happens. I think that, all around they've been playing very good. Darian Kendrick, Tyke Smith never got to really play this year with injuries. Chris Smith, he might come back. Amir Speed. They have pretty good talent. For the most part, is a particularly young unit. We knew that coming into the year. Auburn had some good success downfield. You remember Tennessee, that first drive of the game, they went right downfield, did so with success. They occasionally had clean pockets. For the most part of the game, no, they didn't. But when they did, Hendon Hooker was able to make plays. They had one, I can't remember the name of the receiver. They had one of them go for 200-plus yards, though, on the Bulldog defense. These guys stiffened up, and they didn't allow much. I think they only gave up 17 points in that game. But the tempo was a big part of their success. The scheme was as well. Alabama's going to look to replicate some of that in a bit. But I think the secondary is a big question mark. What can they do if their defensive line's not doing all the heavy lifting? I think we're going to probably find that out in this game. Tide defense, they've gotten better as the years went on. People probably really haven't noticed that despite all the close games they've played. The defense is making good strides. Georgia, they lead the nation, of course, in 20-plus run plays allowed. Only 5 for the Tide. They're right behind them. This run defense, other than the Florida game, where they were not good with positioning, especially Henry Tioto at linebacker. He was not very good in that game. Since then, though, this run defense has been solid. Fedarian Mathis gets good penetration. Byron Young, kind of a committee on the defensive line. They're not as dominant as, typical Nick Saban coach teams are. But they have playmakers all around. Chris Harris, another one of those guys as a linebacker. Playmakers galore. Will Anderson's that in his own right. He's closing in on 30 tackles for loss this season. What does he have? 13 and a half sacks, I believe. He's having a heck of a season off the edge. He's the tone setter for them. He's the alpha dog of this front seven. You're going to look to him to have a big game on Saturday if the Tide look to win this one. You know, I really like what they've done against the run, though, especially against Auburn. They gave up 65 yards to Tank Bigsby, but they came down with a lot of sacks, and that, of course, drove the number backwards. But all around this year, yards have been hard to find for teams playing against Alabama. Speaking of secondaries, one thing that's for certain is that the Bama secondary, they've had their issues with positioning. Seen it against Tennessee. It bit them again against Arkansas. Georgia doesn't have Treylon Burks. They do have George Pickens. I don't think he's going to play a lot, though. He's been in a low pitch count. Treylon Burks, nobody could hold him. He's one of the nation's top receivers, though. So he won that battle all day long. Josh Jobe, Malachi Moore, these guys are plenty capable. Morgan in the slot, Jobe on the outside at a press corner. I like the edge they have against these Georgia wide receivers. These guys aren't exactly physical players. They don't have great size either. Pickens does. He's capable of going up and winning 50-50 balls. So they're going to have to lean on him a bit. DeMarco Hellams at safety. He's been playing really good football for them here down the stretch. The secondary is as talented as they come. Yes, they've been a little disappointing this year. But Nick Saban's a phenomenal defensive back coach. And again, I think they have a matchup advantage here with the physicality and the size. So that's going to be something to watch. But it should be noted that Georgia, they can make you pay. They've been able to do that at times this year. So if they continue to be out of position, I think Georgia will take advantage of that. And team comparisons, I think Bryce Young gives them the edge at quarterback, at running back. Bama's a little beat up. Georgia, I think they have better depth. They've been running the ball better than them as well this year. And, of course, that offensive line they have, it's another edge for them. That's the tone setter for the Bulldogs on offense. Pass catchers, the duo of Williams and Mechie, these guys are phenomenal. They're likely both going to land on a first or second all-SEC team. In the trenches, again, though, the Bulldogs, phenomenal on the defensive front. I'm going to give them the edge at linebacker as well. I think Nakobe Dean's having that big of a season. Henry's not playing too bad himself. He's been a big-time asset for the Tide defense. Christian Harris as well. You can count Will Anderson as an outside linebacker or a defensive end. It doesn't really matter. I think we're just looking, mainly when I talk about linebackers, it's the interior and guys who actually, play behind the line, not guys coming off the edge. That gets factored in. If you're an outside linebacker, usually factored in the defensive line. Georgia's, that's not really a debate with how good they are. Even though the Tide, they're not far behind them. They're only giving up 80 yards per game on the ground. And then the secondary, I think the Tide have the edge. I think they're more talented. Yeah, they do give up bigger plays. They haven't had the defensive line doing as much for them as the Bulldogs have. So I'm going to give the Tide the edge there. I think they have better playmaking in their secondary. Looking at keys to the game, I think for Georgia, it really goes, it honestly goes for both teams. You got to control the line of scrimmage. That's going to be where it starts. That's where it's going to be in this game because Bama, they got to be able to protect. That's the key for them. They got to be able to be better than they were against Auburn, especially on the interior. I remember that Clemson game. I felt that going into that game, they had a pretty big edge against Clemson, and they exposed it massively. What, they have 10 sacks, I think, or something like that? Like, if that's a disadvantage for you, Georgia will expose it. Bama, it kind of is right now. I think they're capable of being much better, though, especially with having Evan Neal up there. And collapse the UGA run game. Very interested to see what they can do when they're not running the ball, winning the field position battle, forcing consistent 3-and-outs. What can they do when their running game's not going well? Can they throw the ball for the win? I don't think they can. That's going to be the pick here. I think Bama is going to find a way to itch this one out. Nick Saban, 7-1 in SEC title games. His only loss was his first appearance, I think, with the Tide against Florida with 2008. I'm pretty sure that was his first appearance with Alabama. That's his only loss. No, they didn't look great against Auburn. Of course, people are going to say whatever they want in the comments. I totally understand. They've not looked great the last couple of weeks, but I think this matchup really paves in their favor. I think they're going to do a good job of slowing down the run. I do not think Stetson Bennett is going to be up to the challenge of winning this game with his arm. He will be benched. I think JT Daniels is going to come in but I think it's going to be a little too late. Bama will have their number. I think they're going to do just enough against this defense. I think they'll figure out a way to kind of neutralize this defensive line just a bit. I don't know how much success they can have over the course of 60 minutes. I think it will slightly be enough. I think Bama's going to play the best game of the season with their backs against the wall here on both sides of the ball. And I think Alabama's going to win this game outright. 28-24 is the pick, and we'll see both of these teams in the playoffs and potentially rematch as well. So that's going to be it for today. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Go ahead and leave all the hate in the comments. I totally understand it. But I think Bama will get it done in this one. See you guys next time.